she is basically a major researcher. I'm not sure if she writes for the Harvard Business Review, but this is basically a lot of the feedback that she got from many companies and many meetings. And even though you are correct, these color maps fail to explain why there's such a big discrepancy between males and females. I mean, you might be right in what you're saying, and I would be very interested in seeing sort of research that would correlate men and female with color maps and see where the reds and blues are. I'll be honest, I have not done that kind of research, but I'm hoping this sort of would be a good input on the topic. Well, go ahead, sir.
Has there been any research done into companies that have implemented cross-gender training and the results that have come out of that?
That's a good question. I think if you look at the research that has been done, definitely companies that conduct that kind of training. So not only code of conduct training, but more of a code of communication, cross-gender communication training. They have done much better with results. I have read the 9 to 5 book, and there's a lot of very interesting examples. And it does bring that question up, which is companies that did train their employees better did overall better with cross-gender communication.
I have a theory for you. If you flip back the slide where you show the graphics, now this is a setting studied for the companies, right? This is a company setting.
Yes. In meetings.
Now what if you do the same study with a family setting at home? Will the graphics flip around or not?
Why don't you come up with a case B and let us know?
You talk a little bit.
Sure, be more specific.
You talk a little bit about training, but what kind of, I guess, concrete training are you talking about?
It's more awareness, awareness training, right? Where it's when you educate people about this, when you tell men in their face, you guys interrupt a lot, or it's unfair to present this in 5 minutes. You can take an entire class here called Global Communication, and there's like half the class is focused on this, and yeah, I mean, it is quite unfair, but there are ways of doing that are very effective.
Do you happen to know, I guess, the demographic that was that made up this study? Were there
Americans. I mean, these are American companies, 3,600 meetings. I would assume they're maybe in the Boston, because this is a Harvard study. Maybe.
The reason I ask is I think communication is also affected by culture. I want to give specifics, but I do know, and I have experienced that different cultures will sound stern when that's just the way they are. Yeah. That's just the way they've grown up. It's not because they're trying to be stern with you, that's just their demeanor. So I think culture definitely has an impact on how you communicate. It'd be interesting if there's studies within culture subsets to see how the roles might change in that regard.
That is actually mentioned in her. There's a very famous book for her, a paper called The Power of Talk, and she mentions cross-cultural communication, and it seems to be very consistent, these figures, with exceptions. Yeah.
I just have a comment, because I like comments, but I thought this was cool because for me, a lot of it made sense, a lot of it I disagree with, so it's just an awareness thing. But I also think just in general, these types of cross-communication challenges across different populations of people is something that should be talked about more. Even, speaking, having someone older than you report into you and managing that relationship, just the communication levels across, cultures, there's a lot of things to be explored there that I don't think a lot of companies, at least ones I've been exposed to, they don't really do a ton of that awareness training. So I appreciate that.
They focus a lot about legalities and the kind of training that would perhaps focus more on conduct.
You learn the ropes, but you're never really officially taught
you don't
the
understand.
ropes. Yeah.
It's never to improve communications, more not to fall into legal miscommunications.
This is super nitpicky because I think this topic is really cool, and I think you did a good job on the slide where you had boys and girls, or vice versa. The boxes aren't the same size.
They're not.
I'm very detail oriented, and so my eye went right to
Trying
it.
to favor boys.
It's a mistake.
Boys like to be bigger.
The clothing one?
Right, and.
I kind of, are you gonna click and then gonna show me more of the fights? Like if there is a surprise, you know?
Sure.
If you want to be nitpicky, it would be nice to have each of the points aligned with the others, so that they'll be parallel, so this is good. So, I thought in general your graphics were nicely done. I thought the whole presentation was very nicely done, very provocative, very thought-provoking. And I thought the solution you came up with was a very good one, and that is that we can learn more about this, and there's a lot that can be, we can understand more about one another if we pay attention to these.
Good presentation. I think you really drew in the audience right away. It was a very good topic as far as getting people listening and involved. Only thing I would watch is using the word bitch, maybe. You might want to use something a little bit different. Depends on your audience.
Yeah.
But, you know, some people might find that offensive at work. And I think at the beginning you said prick or something like that. Again, just watching the words you use so that some people will look down upon you if you use certain language. So just know your audience.
Sure.
I liked your use of, you had a blank screen at the beginning, and you said, you know, sort of prefaced us a little bit, like, this is provocative, you know, but I'm gonna talk about it. So I thought it was just a good way to start out.
I think it's a very good time to end the day, because people apply, and maybe you did on purpose. So the only comment I have is when you first started, so you were talking about a personal story.
Yeah.
Okay, but then you ended with a personal story. So because you went on talking about this study, so I thought if that company issue or it's really that personal story. But I just want maybe place the personal story in the front to emphasize, okay, it is really a personal story. And then take the message.